Hello and welcome to Almost 30 Podcast.
Hi, everybody. How are you? Welcome to the show. It's Lindsay. It's Krista. If you're tuning in on YouTube, hello. I'm looking into my camera.
Yeah, tuned in, tapped in, turned on.
Dude, close-ups. I'm like...
The pressures of being on camera is unparalleled.
I was saying, I literally got a freaking haircut this morning at 9 a.m., so my hair looks halfway decent for
Looks great.
shooting this week. But I was saying to him, I'm like, dude, the moment we went on video, you just can't look back.
Yeah, my nightmare.
It's just everything changes. You got to get ready. Women do not get away with what men get away with on like video, podcasts,
0%
content. So, you know.
We shouldn't have gone it. We shouldn't have.
That's what it is.
We shouldn't have transitioned back. I know I miss being on the closet floor, just being little ragamuffins. Like, it's, you know, and of course I could just not wear makeup and show up, but dude, you think it's a good idea? Because I've done that before. Like, I think last time we recorded, I had just gotten this like salmon sperm facial and my face was all crazy. And I was like, oh, whatever, dude. But then in a month, I'll be like, oh man, that's going to live forever. The choice you make in that moment to get ready or not lives forever. I know.
It is what it is.
Today, I'm really excited about this conversation I had with Aaron Doughty. We went for like 2 hours. It was so much fun.
Cool.
Aaron is good friends with a lot of my friends in Los Angeles, and he is a YouTuber. He is a creator. He does live events, and he's someone that has like a few million on YouTube. He's been teaching about detachment, surrender, magnetism, empath stuff for a while, and I love how he rolls. I love his content, and I think we just had such a great conversation. So for my spiritual girlies and my personal development people, this is going to be a great one for you. One of the topics that we talked about was empaths, like being an empath, being someone that's sensitive, and codependency. We talked about the nice guy, like that archetype of the men that is the nice guy. We talked about dating and detachment, how to detach to actually get what you want and how to surrender to get what you want. And then we just had like a good old time just kind of like talking about life and his journey and his story of growing up in a pretty hard situation in his life and how he healed it. And now he eventually teaches a lot of the things that he went through.
I always wonder, like, when you have, you know, a successful YouTube channel, like what that feeling is with like, I mean, obviously we have, you know, we got our successful pod, but I don't know, YouTube's like a different world.
I think the fandom is different too.
I agree with that.
I think the way that people are YouTube fans is just, what's interesting to me about YouTube is that someone like Emma Chamberlain can thrive being someone who's making soup for 25 minutes. And then someone else like Mr. Beast is creating Squid Games again.
Yeah.
And donating $20 million. And it's like, how is it the range?
The range is insane.
Of effort is so crazy.
My dad finds like the most random ass. He likes to wind down with YouTube on the TV. And he found this family, I think in like Peru, that like they have a whole YouTube channel where they don't speak, but they just show their daily life. It is the most relaxing thing I've ever watched in my life. And so beautiful because they're like, they're working with the land, they're making their own food, they're like just the whole thing. So simple, so beautiful. And it's like the sounds of cows in the background, the like wind chimes. Like it is the most relaxing thing. So yeah, just to add to the range.
That.
Yeah.
See, that is so fascinating. It's so fascinating too. Because the perception is that the people in Peru would want to live the life that we live in the West, but it's actually the opposite.
Yes.
The people in the West want to live on that farm in Peru.
Totally.
And want to live that simple life. I found this channel the other day of this guy who goes to all over America to places that people don't normally go. So like Skid Row, this area in San Francisco. He went to the poorest part of America, which is in West Virginia. Or like the deep, deep South, or like the really rich South, like all over America at all these places. Cool. And it's so wild to discover America in that way. And I just have loved it. Like I love how he talks to random people. I love seeing behind the scenes. Like we kind of focus so much on LA and New York and Austin and, you know, kind of like those specific cities. But to really see other aspects of America and the people in it is so fascinating.
100%.
I love it.
Have you ever seen The Great White Underbelly?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's intense, but
I
kinda
can
remind
only
me of.
watch like 3 episodes. It's too dark.
Yeah, I agree.
I remember there was like a moment where I was watching a few of them, and then there was a 14-year-old who had like a pimp that she had been. It was just
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
good on
yeah.
all that.
Oh, man.
I'm good. Like,
But I do think it's fascinating and admirable to give those people kind of that
for sure.
ability to tell their
That
story.
humanity.
Yeah.
I thought it was also interesting too. So this guy named Mark, who does Soft White Underbelly, which is a channel
Software, yeah.
that interviews people living in Skid Row. So they're addicts of fentanyl, meth, they're pimps, they're prostitutes, they are gambling, they're all these types of people. And he'll interview them, and so you'll learn about their story, which is just fascinating and so interesting. So he tried to help one of these women that was a prostitute, and he got her like an apartment and tried to like save her. And she eventually started to like use that apartment for her pimp, and like eventually left and like got back into her life. And for me, that just showed almost like the thing where like a diet can't fix your life. It's like if you're not fixing your mental process and your subconscious beliefs about your life and what's possible, you're never going to survive in a safe environment where you like could be in a home. Like you won't feel worthy, you won't feel enough, it won't feel safe. Like your pimp is probably your safe spot. So it's just fascinating because it's such an example of how our mind and sort of our belief of what's possible creates what's possible.
100%. Well, I'm excited about this one.
Oh yes, it'll be
So good.
It's going to be so good. I'll let you guys cruise and get into it. So much fun. So I want you guys to find Aaron on YouTube and Instagram for more information. We'll definitely be doing another conversation soon. So he is at Aaron Doughty. It's AARON DOUGHTY 44 on Instagram, and then Aaron Doughty on YouTube. He has almost 2 million subscribers on YouTube. And then he has his courses and programs. And I just find him to be great and a great, great, great teacher. Very vulnerable and real. I'm excited for you to listen.
Amazing. We love you guys. Thank you so much for subscribing to the pod. We have new episodes every single week. And if you want just a little dose of Almost 30, maybe to start your day, just in between all the things that you're up to, you can listen to Morning Microdose. That's our clip show. And final thing I'll plug is our book, baby. You can pre-order Almost 30, A Definitive Guide to a Life You Love for this decade and beyond right now. It is out in June, but you want to pre-order because we have some really, really special things for you if you are some of the first to get the book. So stay tuned.
I'm really excited. This book I'm so proud of. If you've listened to the pod ever, and you know Lindsay and I, this is like literally our life's work on paper. Like it is like $30 for like my teachings and your teachings over the past 10 years of our life, and some of the greatest speakers and teachers and authors and guests that we've had on the show, just like in one combined space. So I'm excited for you guys to get it. Love you very much. Follow us on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. We're going to be revamping social this year, so I'm excited to bring you new, fresh content and things that can help and elevate your life and your experience. You can find me on Instagram. It's Krista. It's ITSKRISTA.
And I'm at Lindsay Simcik, SIMCIK. All right, we'll see you on the other side.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye. I put Mav to bed the other night and I sat down and I made myself a little elixir with one of Apothekary's herbal remedies. And y'all, I feel like I'm a little barista or like bartender with these herbal remedies. I recently talked to the founder, Shizu, of Apothekary, and we jammed, and I was just so fascinated by the origins of this brand and like how powerful herbs are. So powerful. So they have tinctures for sleep, for mood, for metabolism, and more. I am obsessed with Take the Edge Off. This is inspired by white wine to calm high stress and ease tension. I'll add it to like a sparkling water or regular water. I also love Wine Down. This is their red wine inspired alcohol alternative. This is more if I'm like close to bed, I want to wind down, I want to get a little sleepy. It's incredible. One of their most popular tinctures is the Blue Burn. This is a tincture for metabolic health and weight support. So this helps manage a healthy metabolism, reduce sugar cravings, and improve endurance and workout recovery. It's one of their best selling. You can put it in a liquid or you can just put it straight in your mouth. It's pretty amazing. They've done many studies And it's been pretty remarkable what they found. 96% of participants in this one study would continue to take Blueburn daily after the completion for the 3-month study period. 82% of participants experienced better mental clarity and less brain fog through the day after taking Blueburn for 3 months. 80% of participants felt like they had more energy for working out after 3 months of taking Blueburn. So pretty phenomenal. And this is just herbs. It's incredible. So if you want to try Apothekary, highly recommend. Use the code almost30 at checkout when you go to apothekary.co. You'll get 15% off. Use the code almost30. That's APOTHEKARY.co and use the code almost30. Enjoy. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. I got to thinking at the top of this year, by the way, Happy New Year. What do I want my 2025 story to be? I know January can be like kind of overwhelming, a little much. We're like, what are our goals? But January just like brings you this beautiful book of blank pages, right? 365 blank pages waiting to be filled. In 2025, maybe you're ready for a plot twist, or maybe there's like a part of your story you've been wanting to revise. It's not really about the resolutions and the goal setting, all of that. Like, we get it, that'll fade. All of a sudden it'll be February and we're like, what were our goals? But it's about picking up the pen and becoming the author of your own life, truly. And one of the ways that I've been able to do that is working with my therapist. And I feel like she's like my editorial partner, to be honest. And we're rewriting chapters, we're writing new ones. And I can't say enough about therapy. It's changed my life. I've been in it for 7 years. I've been with my current therapist for about 4 years. I'm just so proud. I'm so proud of this work. And it makes me a better mom, a better wife, a better friend, a better daughter, a better sister. So I'm just going to keep investing in it. So if you've been thinking about starting therapy, BetterHelp is fully online. It makes therapy affordable and convenient. It has just a beautiful, diverse network of more than 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialties. So are you ready? Let's do this. BetterHelp.com/almost30 to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/almost30. You are going to get 10% off your first month.
Right. It's like, why I think also too, I'm still metabolizing in life that you can be really direct and clear
Yeah.
and be loving.
Right.
And
yeah, maybe that's the most loving thing you can do is to
exactly.
actually convey the seriousness or the importance
Yes.
of something that maybe
Yes.
isn't in the nice,
Yes.
format.
How do you give feedback? Like, what's your vibe?
I work on that too because
Yeah.
it's kind of like it's a balance of needing to trust people on my team to do things, but then
Yeah.
when I only notice the flaws. Everything else should be done correctly. So I only noticed the flaws. So
Totally.
I sent a thing out to my operations person today or a couple days ago and said, let's do it on Monday because they're not working the weekends or whatever. But it was like I was like, was I too harsh? Because I made a Loom video where I broke down like, why isn't this done? Why isn't this done? Who dropped the ball here? And the reason what that happened was because my operations person also works for one of my other businesses and her salary's like split. So during this other launch thing over here, she dropped the ball. Like
Right.
she dropped the ball. And also I'm starting to give her more permission to hire someone that does this.
Yeah.
But it wasn't done. So she took ownership of it. And I was like, listen, I'm sorry. I know this comes out like I'm frustrated, but you got to understand in my mind, I pass it on to you. Your job is to manage your
Yes.
job. You don't have to do it.
Yes.
But you need to manage it. So you
Yes.
need to hold people accountable and manage because that's what your role is.
Yes.
And I said it kind of like that. And
Yeah.
then she's like, I'm sorry, that was my bad. I had a lot going on over here. It's not an excuse, but also now that I gave her permission to basically hire one or two people, like you have permission to, and because what I hate
Yeah.
is the bottleneck of they have to ask every little thing to you. Hey,
Yes.
this person's salary. Hey, this person's this person's that. And I'm
Yes.
like, decision fatigue.
Yes.
So I want to trust them, but at the same time, then I get in there and a whole bunch of things are fucked up.
Yeah.
And then I get frustrated.
Yeah.
So
And then they're scared again. And then it's the cycle.
Yep. And I talked to Sahara
100%.
about this because you kind of have to accept that some things are going to get fucked up.
Yeah.
And no one's going to do, if they can do it 80% as good as you, that's
Yep.
good enough.
Yep.
Because that allows you to have 100% more, a whole bunch more energy over here.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at right now. I'm like, well, no one's going to write emails as authentic as me because
Yes.
it's me.
Yes.
No one's going to like pick the right YouTube thumbnails, and that no one's going to know my audience. What if they lose like the vibe of my brand and
Yes.
authenticity because they're going for clickbait views,
Yeah.
which is something in the past, like it was more clickbait focused, which I regret. So it's all of these layers, but it's like you have to,
Totally.
I think our job as visionaries is to set the vision,
Yep.
to set the frame,
Yep.
and to, but also to, I think it's good to have a high standard, because if you let people on your team that don't have a high standard get by,
Yeah.
it signals to the 5 other people,
Yep.
oh, this is okay.
Yep.
It's okay to like slap dick around and not focus.
Yep.
It's okay.
And I just always think, like, especially for you, and I think for me too, like, if my younger self would have known that I could have worked with me or worked with you as a job,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Dream.
Right.
To work in a space that
Yeah.
growth and spirituality and creativity
Yep.
with someone, I'm like, this is like a dream job for so many. And I
Right.
want someone, I think that's been my desire that my friends push back with me on, and then we can roll. But it's like, I'm always like, I want someone to literally have working with me be their dream job. And
Yeah.
it's not like working with me as a guru, but it's working in this, doing what I do in the way that I serve as like their dream to like
Right.
help people in this way.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're like, oh, you shouldn't expect that. Like, I'm like, no, that's like what I really want that.
Well, I think also the way that you convey that to people,
Yeah.
like my dream
Yes.
is to help as many people as possible
Yes.
to do X, Y, Z.
Yes.
And then I think if you keep hammering that in,
Yeah,
you'll
that's
attract
true.
people that also have that vision.
Yeah, that's true.
Like I know when I do live events, like I'm doing one this weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and when I do it, we always have past guests. We put out like people to come as
Cool.
volunteers.
Yeah.
I get more volunteers than I can even manage
I
because
know.
people just want to be a part of something.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
Like they just
100%.
want to be a part of it, and they
Yes.
come for free.
Yeah.
I've had people fly in from different states
Yeah.
to come to the event and then to help.
Wow.
It happens. Like one event I did in LA last year. There was a 300 person live event
Yeah.
in Glendale, and we had like 25 volunteers, and
Wow.
like 10 of them travels from different states.
Yeah.
And they came and they worked the entire event. And
Yeah.
they feel so much meaning.
Yes.
And it's not just to like talk to Aaron, and 'cause I don't
Yes.
have time I can't pander to them. I'm not just there to like coaching
Totally.
them. I just
That's
say
my
thank.
favorite when you have people that are like that get it. Like on my retreats, my girls that I coach,
Uh-huh.
they don't talk to me because they know we get our time,
Right.
and then I need time with the other girls. So like we'll be at the gym and they'll be there. They're like, hey, what's up? And they'll totally just cruise and do
That's
their own
cool.
thing. I'm like, dude, this is the best.
And sometimes you can set that frame too.
100%.
Hey guys, just so you know, my energy and my focus.
Yeah.
Can you guys support me and having my energy be top shape when I'm on
Yes,
stage?
yes.
And then in between, just like guarding my energy, kind of
Yeah.
like helping me with boundaries, because
Yes.
it at live event with 300 people, they're like, I have to set that frame. Otherwise people come up, not just volunteers, but people come up to me. Hey, Aaron, here's my book. Hey, Aaron, I just want you to know. Hey. And then I'm like, okay, go do the group work. I'm going to like take a 5-minute rest my voice thing.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Mine's like, hey, I want to tell you about this like traumatic thing that happened to me.
Right. Yeah. When I first saw your video, like, oh,
Yes, yes.
I went through a divorce, whatever. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, great.
It's funny because, and this is even, moving into the empath stuff, back in the day, they used to take me down, someone telling
Yeah.
me a story about their life or something that happened to them. I would completely get there, match energy, start crying,
Yeah.
start fully feeling and processing everything they were doing. And thank God that now people could tell me anything. And I'm like, totally, I'm holding space. I hold compassion,
Yeah.
but I just don't attach to it.
Right.
And getting out of that frequency is 100% one of the only ways that I've been able to expand.
Yeah.
Because I was just matching, going. And now it's like I see it so clearly with people that want to go big, that want to be on
Right.
stage, that want to be in their power, that like if they're energy matching, they're never going to be able to do it.
Right. Yeah.
With empaths, what do you see as like their biggest struggle and the thing that really holds them back from being in their power?
The biggest thing that holds many people back that are
Yeah.
empaths is the fact that they're tuning to other people in a way in order to get their own needs met, but they're not aware that that's why they're doing it. So it's like, if you're an empath, you can feel other people's energies. You're very often like, going into environments and you're asking yourself, is it safe? Is it safe for me to be here? And if there's tension and you identify tension anywhere, you've got a radar to where you can tell if there's tension or not, and then
In tune to it.
you think it's your responsibility to fix.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge.
So I want to double click on that because I think empaths feel like they're being nice
Mm-hmm.
and they're being sweet and
Yeah.
it's them caring. What's that fine line of the empathy versus them just attuning to feel safe?
Yeah. The difference is in the intention behind it. So if someone is trying to be nice is an attachment to how someone perceives them, and also in its attachment to wanting to ease their tension, ease their pain. When you are being kind, which is different, kind, there's no attachment. You're being kind because it's who you are. And when you're being it because it's who you are, there's no attachment to outcome. If someone, here's the thing also that a lot of people that are nice or people pleasers is, I'm being nice. But if it's not reciprocated, if the person doesn't respond positively, they get really triggered.
Oh my God, so true.
But they're triggered because there is an attachment to the outcome.
So true.
Yeah.
It's funny because you can see that with people with like, I was being so, that's so funny because it's always so wild to me. And I'm not saying I've never not done this in my life. I probably have at some point, but when someone is being nice and then someone doesn't reciprocate and they flip and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like what is that whole flip about?
Right.
Like the whole personality change.
Yeah.
But I think for many empaths, I would say, I'm curious to your thoughts on this. Most empaths are women.
Yeah.
And most empaths are women that get taken advantage of because of how much they care.
Right.
By society or by men or by others.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I think it's very often definitely more of a feminine trait, I guess, to be
Yeah.
able to tune to their environment for relational like dynamics in general. There is
Yeah.
probably more of a stigma around narcissists and men and the masculine,
Yes.
and then empaths being feminine. There definitely could be that, like, I guess, kind of like label to the stereotype, I
Yeah.
guess you could say.
Totally.
But the thing to look at with that too is anytime someone says like this person is nice, how do they say it, right? They're like, oh, he's nice, right? It's never like in like, well, that person, well, they're nice.
So true. Okay, that's some man this weekend called me cute. And he's like, oh, she's cute. I'm like, goodbye. That is my
You got-
nightmare phrase.
Right.
Do not call me cute. He's
Yeah.
like, oh, she's cute. I'm like, kittens are cute. I'm not cute.
Yeah.
That's like the same with nice. Don't call me nice. Don't call me cute.
Yeah, it's almost disrespectful in a way. It's like,
100%.
oh, this person's nice. Being nice is inauthentic. Because it's attached to outcome. Being kind is not inauthentic. Being kind is an end of itself. Being kind because it's who you are. If someone reacts in a negative way, it's okay because this is who I am. I am a kind person. But being a nice person is being a manipulative person. To be nice is to be manipulative, right? I want to manage, but I feel safe when I manage your emotions and when you don't feel tension. So I'm going to be nice, and by plain being nice, I will ease your tension. And once I ease your tension, I will feel good about myself. So in a way, being an empath or a people pleaser is a way of manipulating the environment in order to get their inner needs met. Mm-hmm. Now, that is something that we can hide behind. People will hide behind, I am nice and I am a good person. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest shadow aspects I notice for people to really grow, if you're an empath or a people pleaser or whatever, is lean into being bad. Mm-hmm. Because here's the thing, as a kid, it was bad to stand up for yourself. It was bad to assert yourself. It was bad to be vulnerable. It was bad to express yourself. It was bad to have needs. So what happens is because it was bad to do all of those things, we associate, I will not be bad, I will be good. I will be good. To be good means I will ease the tension in the family. I will ease the tension in you. I will be who you need me to be so I can mitigate your emotions and then I can feel good about myself. So really, the niceness is a toxic pattern that's rooted in trying to manipulate the environment, and that stems from the childhood trauma, but also the thing that you can grow the most from is lean into being bad. Lean into expressing your emotions. But I'm not saying bad like being a narcissist, because this is the thing. Empaths, what I believe is empaths, or people that can feel other people's energies, as kids, they had someone in their life that played the villain archetype, right? This person's controlling, this person's bad. The fear is that if I express any emotion whatsoever, I'm going to turn into this bad villain, the archetype, right? So but the thing is having any needs whatsoever, or actually expressing how you feel or expressing a boundary, the moment you express it a little bit, are you going to turn into a raging narcissist? Of course not. But that's the fear. The fear is, this person caused me pain when I was a kid, and this person was controlling and assertive. Now, the thing too, though, is the power. Like, a lot of times, people that are either narcissistic or controlling, it's a toxic form of power, but it is power.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So what happens is people that are empaths, or people that can feel other people's energies, they suppress their own power.
Yes.
Because they associate it as bad, but it's still power nonetheless. So the power is in embracing the bad parts of yourself that you didn't allow yourself to feel. And what you end up doing is you end up realizing that you can let go of the nice guy, good girl, good boy persona. And what happens is then you start being authentic. And when I integrated this into my life a few years ago, I went through a whole phase where I became aware that there were so many dynamics in my life that were out of balance.
Same.
And I had to basically express myself authentically to a few different people. And I remember doing this. There was fear there.
Yeah.
There was afraid of being, of getting, causing tension. And I remember, though, I had those conversations and I had to stand in my own frame, and I did. And what it resulted in was respect.
Yeah.
For the first time, there were people in my life that I could tell respected me because I held a frame with them and I expressed how I felt, and I didn't waver my frame, and I wasn't doing it to get a specific result. I was doing it because this is who I am and this is how I feel.
Yeah.
And after I started to embody that more and more and set boundaries easier, or it got easier the more I did it.
Yeah.
I realized that this not dark side of me, but in a way there was an embracing of that side that I hadn't allowed myself to feel. And that's when a whole new level of power came within me. That's when I became more assertive in my life. That's when polarity balanced out, and women I would date, it was a completely different energy, because no longer was I just the guy that's on my purpose, that's in my masculine. I was also somebody that was in a masculine frame that was able to convey myself in an integral way, but express it in a way that was there was no attachment to outcome.
Totally. I think, there's so much that you said that I want to talk about, and I was processing some things in my own life while you were talking. So a lot of what I'm saying is not fully baked.
Yeah.
But the thing that you kind of landed on at the end, that was almost at the opening, at the beginning, is around the nice guy.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because that used to be my comfort zone, was nice guys. It was just guys that were so nice, that were chill, go with the flow, da da da. And now that is my nightmare. I do not want the man that is loved by all, accepted by all, just easy breezy, go with the flow, da 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 da. I want a man with a frame and an opinion and a perspective. And it's funny because I always notice myself whenever I'm kind of wanting to call in an energy. I've been watching these men on YouTube that are probably very controversial, but they're very much have their own frame, have their own perspective. They are not afraid to say how they feel. They're not afraid for people to disagree. They're these professional debaters and whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of feeling into the love of that energy, where even if I don't agree with you, you're still going to stand firm in what you believe and why you believe it.
Right.
Is such a more safe feeling than being with someone that agrees with everything that you say.
Yeah.
But do you feel like that is and I'm curious because this relates to your polarity thing. Do you feel like I'm able to be attracted to that because I've integrated that part of my shadow? And before, when I was wanting someone to be a nice guy, it was because I was also in that energy? Or what do you think that is?
I think that the way that you're relating to masculine energy is probably changing.
Yes.
When you think of masculine energy, think of it kind of like a rock.
Yeah.
It has gravity.
Yeah.
It is not moving very much.
Yeah.
It knows who it is, and it's a solid rock.
Yeah.
Women, or the feminine energy, tends to gravitate around the rock.
Yes.
It's more airy energy. It's gravitating around the rock. Now imagine if the masculine energy is a rock that's floating around. It puts the woman's orbit into chaos, right? Because it's constantly having to tune. And also because the rock is tuning to this over here, this over here, this over here, it doesn't feel safe.
Yes.
So what happens is when you listen to these people and they're very grounded into who they are, there's a certain thing that you're attracted to, that even just that energy.
Yes.
And it's because it's grounded and that feels safe.
Yeah.
And that safety allows you to relax. Because whether you agree or disagree, you know what that is.
Yes.
With a nice guy or somebody that's a people pleaser, you don't know what they're really feeling at all, because it changes based on your mood. It changes based on your energy. And the thing is, though, is I think a lot of times people that attract nice guys, or I mean, there's men that can attract nice, like people pleaser girls as well. So it's kind of a similar thing. But there's almost a lot of times, I think, a fear around masculine energy in general. So it's safer than the being bulldozed by a masculine figure growing up, or a masculine figure that you may relate to later in life. But it's safer than that.
Yeah.
So the challenge with that, though, is there's normally not much polarity.
Yes, 100%.
Right? So there's a polarity challenge,
Yes.
because it's hard to be attracted to someone that's being nice because you don't know where they stand.
Totally.
And this can happen I've dated women before that also similar, like a version of that for women, where I would almost test them to see where their perspective, I would say something, they would agree with me. And then I would say something else and they'd agree. And I was like, what do you really think? Like, like that's like, women do this with shit testing guys, right?
For
That's what it's called or
sure.
whatever. But I would start to become aware of this pattern where, the perspective is changing. And that, even to me, I was like, well, who are you really?
Yeah, oh
you know
my
what I mean?
gosh,
Like, what do you
100%.
really think about
Totally.
this? And then you start questioning, like, who is this person?
I've had to do that with dating, where I've had I don't know if it's a problem, but like people are in dating, they're like, you should tell people what you want. And now I'm afraid of telling men what I want, because men usually agree with me. Do you know what I mean? They're like, yeah, I want that too. That sounds great. And I'm like, dude, I don't. And now I'm scared, because do you want this?
Right.
And I've had to get more specific, because what I realized I was doing before is I was like, I want a lot of abundance in my life. I want a lot of beauty, relationships, blah, blah. And I was saying all these words that everyone kind of agrees with.
Right.
They want abundance. Whatever.
Yeah.
And so now I've been more specific, granularly, like I want this type of home, this type of neighborhood, this type of life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, whatever, people can feel whatever their way about it, but it's like, are you able to achieve that or be at that level with me?
Right.
Makes it a lot simpler, but it's been hard. So I've noticed myself at the beginning of dating, not really sharing with any men what I wanted or what I was looking for, because I was afraid they were just going to act like that or be like it. Because I've even noticed that with men that I date, I'll be like, I'm looking for a man like this, or I really like this. And then they'll do it. And I'm like, is this authentic, or are you just trying to please me?
Right. Yeah.
And I'll kill them.
Yeah. They'll pay for it.
And they'll fucking pay for it.
Yeah.
Wait, so you said something. What was the thing you said about shit testing? I don't know what that is.
Oh, a shit test is, so sometimes what will happen when woman is dating men, and men, like just the general gender dynamics, whatever. But like, I'm just saying in general,
Yes.
normally, a man that is in his frame, a
Yes.
man that is in his integrity, that knows who he is and is expressing who he is authentically in the world. A shit test is sometimes what women will do is something called a shit test. And what a shit test is, it's testing their frame. It's testing to
Wow.
see if do they really believe what they believe.
Yeah.
And what happens is sometimes there'll be a shit test, and if the guy caves, it shows that his frame isn't that strong, or if he lets himself get reactive, right?
Wow.
And what happens is it's basically a subconscious way a woman's saying, I don't know if I can feel safe. And therefore, there's a testing of the frame. And what happens is sometimes if the man does cave, or the masculine energy does cave, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, did I, that shows a certain level of weakness. And that's why sometimes there may be that kind of energy. So that's called the shit test in the.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know where I see shit tests all the time is Love is Blind, the reality show.
Mhm.
I will watch them. And
Everyone
then
talks about that show. They're like, I've never
Dude.
seen it, but I kind of know the concept, right?
We'll watch and we'll see.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'll see it and I'm like, oh, now they're together in person. And now I see her testing him.
Yes.
Like as an example, there was one girl in Love is Blind Argentina. I'm watching all the countries.
There's that many shows now?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
It's just like, it's just watching humans and like, what I mean?
Yeah.
She said she didn't want a jealous man. She doesn't want her man to be jealous. And he's like, I get jealous sometimes, and he was like, honest. He's like, it's, I'm working on it. So they get in the pool. She starts hugging and holding another guy. And she's like, are you getting jealous? Are you getting jealous?
Uh-huh.
Like kind of like testing him to see if he was going to get jealous. He didn't react. And then later in the show, in bed, she goes, I really want a man that's not jealous. I want to check you were not jealous, and was pushing him. And he was like, I have to admit, I was a little jealous, but was regulated about it. And she kept bucking. I was like, girl, you're trying to test this man to see if he's going to stay in his, and he was, and you need to chill.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it's kind of wild. Actually, people will do that, I think, a lot of times in relationships. And I'm curious how you feel about this, where they'll test them. It's almost like they'll feel so good. And it's like a part of them comes forward, maybe a younger child or an unhealed part that wants to test if the relationship will last or kind of wants to blow things up because they're scared.
Yeah. That can absolutely happen.
Yeah.
Like versions of like sabotaging it
Yes.
by trying to figure it
Yes.
all out or trying to control it in some way.
Yes.
And ultimately, by the way, I think with a lot of that dynamics of the shit testing and all that, that's something that's commonly understood in like the dating, I don't know, like the men's, like
Yeah.
this is what women do sometimes,
Yeah.
right? A lot of times when I see a lot of this content on Red Pill and stuff like that, I think a lot of it, some of it could be true in the general sense of like patterns and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
it might be rooted in trauma, right? So maybe it works for a lot of people that are also caught in their trauma. And ultimately, there's a certain lack of vulnerability that might be there. Instead of just saying like, hey, I'm not feeling very safe right now, or I'm not sure if this is what you really believe. It's like, are you jealous or not jealous? And it's like, I'm going to touch other men to make
Yes.
this person jealous.
Yes.
That's a game. I mean, that's playing games,
100%.
addicted to dopamine probably. And
Yes.
it's all probably rooted in that,
It's
like
unconscious.
it's unconscious. Exactly.
Because that's my last thing I'll say about Love is Blind is that's my fascination. And I think I want to do like a YouTube series on it because it's like you can see when you're conscious what's happening unconsciously.
Right.
She is afraid of something happening that happened in her past. So
Right.
a part of her is coming forward to test and see if this man is going to react.
Why
in the same
would
way.
she not want a guy? So she wants a guy that's not jealous, right? Like, I don't know. That's an interesting. That'd be a whole thing for someone to go into
Yes.
regarding her childhood trauma.
Yes.
Because sometimes people say they want one thing, but deep down they might actually want.
Exactly.
She's like, I don't want jealous. I don't want jealous. I don't want jealous. But she probably also wants to be claimed,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Or just not to feel controlled or manipulated.
Yes.
So you can't ever really just assume that maybe what's happening on the surface is what's actually happening on the inside, because we all have these self-preservation mechanisms that we use to get our needs met.
Yes.
And sometimes it involves the empath stuff,
Yes.
right? Of tuning to other people. And then there's this, I'm a nice person. And there's this guy, people hide behind this idea of being a nice, good girl or good boy or whatever. But underneath that, there's more going on.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
there's a manipulation of the environment going on, trying to control things to get their needs met.
Yes.
So,
and that's so much. And I'm curious your experience with this because I said, you said you healed from this, and it's so refreshing to be with a man that sort of healed that.
mm-hmm.
But gosh, I mean, how much energy I freed up
Yeah,
in my life for myself when
Right.
I stopped doing that.
right.
Going into every room, attuning to everyone, reading the
Yeah.
energy, reading everyone's minds, alchemy, you know what I mean? Doing all that when I'm like, just here.
Right.
That's all I'm worried about.
Yeah.
Then I can actually worry about myself and my purpose. When did you realize the patterns that you were in? And I'd love to hear, first of all, when you realized and what were the patterns? Like, what was your awakening with this?
Yeah, the patterns were just kind of like long story short type thing. Growing up from 7 to 17, I had a narcissistic ex-stepmom in my life that was very controlling and manipulative, where no matter what my brother and I did, we were always wrong. We were normally locked outside doing yard work every day. Weren't allowed to have friends, weren't allowed to watch TV. My dad kind of allowed it to happen because he was a firefighter. He was gone, some of the time. He knew about some of it, but didn't necessarily want to stand up to her. So it was this dynamic.
What was the belief about TV and friends?
Everything was controlled in our life.
Wow.
We weren't allowed to, there was no religious belief or anything. We were just, when they weren't home, we were locked outside of the house doing yard work. When they were home, we were in trouble all the time we had to earn going to school activities. I mean, it was just, we had to sneak to get enough food to eat. We lived in like the mother-in-law's quarters in the house. We lived in a nice house growing up that was always being remodeled. But my brother and I lived in the 70s, outdated, like mother-in-law quarters of the house with like a caged door. And we were given a bowl of cereal, like a gallon of milk a week, cereal, and like 2 TV dinners to eat every, at night. So we were very malnourished, so like a lot of our needs were barely being met, but that became normal. So what happened is after 17 years
It's
old,
making me emotional.
yeah, well, I think a lot of people that I meet that know me from my videos
That
and
sounds
stuff,
like a movie.
right. Well, I think a lot of it's more common than you think.
A caged
It's not
door?
really, I mean, it's not like a cage. It was just like a raw. We would have to sneak into the other side of the house to get enough food to eat. Do you know what I mean? Like,
No, I don't know, but I'm listening.
right? Maybe I'm softening it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
No, it's just, yeah.
But in general, that was the dynamic. And then 17 years old comes around. My dad divorces my ex stepmom. All of a sudden, complete shift where
Wow.
we moved in with our grandma for a while the divorce starts. We're allowed to have friends. We're allowed to watch television. We're allowed to play video games. We're allowed to get enough food to eat. We don't have to earn going to school activities, like a complete shift, right? So what happened is after that, eventually I am going to college. I get a job at Nordstrom's in women's shoes. That's where I worked
As you do.
Yeah, that's what you do, right? It was
Yeah.
a commission job. It was a good job at the time. I worked there for 5 years, and the manager that was my manager. So first off, after that happened, I then met an ex-girlfriend that was controlling, not to that toxic level of like anything like that, but more just controlling and jealous,
Yeah.
right? And she was in my life for 4 years. I broke up with her. Within 2 weeks of breaking up with her, I got transferred from brass plum shoes at Nordstrom's to salon shoes. It's a better shoe department to be in. The manager of that
New
department,
timeline.
right? But here's the thing that happened. Within 2 weeks of breaking up with her, I got transferred to a department where the manager was the same exact personality as my ex-stepmom. So for another year or two, I worked there, and that manager was almost the same personality and everything. So what happened is this back in 2011 or 12, right around my spiritual awakening. So I learned meditation, completely shifted my life. But what I became aware of is this same pattern has been in my life since I can remember. Either it was the ex-stepmom till I was 17, or it was a girlfriend for 4 years that was jealous and controlling. And I was I wasn't allowed to have a personality really from 7 to 17 because I wasn't allowed to have friends. After that, I became a very like extroverted person because I was so excited to have freedom and to be able to eat enough food, my whole new life, right? But what happened is that ex-girlfriend was jealous. Okay, break up with her. Within 2 weeks, go to a better shoe department where the manager's the same personality as my ex-stepmom. And what happened was eventually I learned meditation. And what I went through was a process of healing and forgiving my ex-stepmom. That was really the shift. Within 2 weeks of forgiving my ex-stepmom, because what I realized is my ex-stepmom, who was kind of that archetype when I was growing up, that was of control and all of this stuff. What I realized is she was treated the same way by her dad growing up, and that is why she was the way she was. However, it wasn't that I was like, oh, I intellectually understand everything's right now, but I was actually grateful that I went through that because I realized that I would not have gone through this spiritual awakening where I learned meditation, learned how to observe my thoughts, and literally my whole entire life began to shift because I started to become aware of these patterns inside of myself. My whole life shifted to where then I said, oh, instead of like, why did my childhood happen? Things aren't fair, blah, 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 blah. I then realized that in this present, I realized that led me to my spiritual awakening. It's a good thing. Thank God it happened. I wouldn't be where I'm at right now with the YouTube follow or whatever you call it, like the success, with doing live events, having the reach that I have, if it weren't for the trauma that I went through. So because I've reframed that meaning, and that's the thing I think a lot of people listening to can understand is based on the things that happened in our past, there's a certain meaning. That meaning is controlling us in the present moment. I had a belief that women specifically were controlling, that I had to fight for my freedom. So what happened is 7 to 17, that was the survival mechanism I had, was tuning to a narcissistic ex-stepmom whose emotions were all over the place, also borderline personality disorder, very much all over the place. You never knew how someone felt. That became a way of surviving, knowing how this person is feeling in order to get by. Well, what happens is I became aware of this pattern. I became aware that for 4 years, I was in a relationship with someone that was controlling. I had to fight for freedom. Things weren't fair. And then at that 9-to-5 job, same thing. It was the same story as well. Let me point out. Things aren't fair around authority issues. That was the story.
That's a good one.
Things aren't fair. And I realized this lens, this belief that I have is going through my entire life where things aren't fair. All the way up until I come to this today to do this podcast with you. I'll share a little bit of this story. I rented a house last year in Austin. I told you I have houses that I have a house being rented out in Austin, but also I was renting a house in Austin for a year. The person that was renting me that house was this woman, And she, when I met her to like rent this house, a very expensive house to rent. However, it was a beautiful house. And I was like, I want to live in this house. And basically what happened is I ended up getting into this expensive house. And the house, when I met this person, there were red flags, but I discounted it because I liked the house so much. I could tell she was neurotic. I could tell that the house was furnished and it was in this beautiful part of Austin. And even though I could feel something was off and I could feel she was neurotic, I went with it. I ended up moving into this house anyways. It was a furnished house. I moved some of the furniture in the house into storage because I didn't like the furniture. And it was I could tell it was a big deal to her that I was moving any furniture. I'm like, I'm renting the house. I'll put it back the way I left it, Basically what ended up happening is I lived in this house for a year. I then moved to LA. And when I moved out, whatever I did, I put the house, I had videos of the house so I could put all the furniture back where it was. I'm a single guy living in the house. I don't have pets. I don't have dogs or kids or anything. I move out of this house and they go to the house and just so many things, they every little detail they could find that was different. It was like I had this large security deposit on the house. So there was like this energy where I didn't do anything right.
Yeah.
Right. And what ended up happening is I moved out 2 months ago and I'm just now trying to get back my $24,000 security deposit and I'm working on it. And the challenge is that everything I did wasn't good enough. And what's crazy is the standards are so high. And I felt like I was walking on eggshells that entire time living in the house because every little thing that happened, it was like if something wasn't working on one of the TVs, they're like, don't touch this cabinet, don't do this, don't do that. I'm like, okay, I'm also paying a lot of money to rent this house. You know what I mean? But basically what's happened is 2 weeks before I was in that house, I spilled on accident this gold supplement drink that I have. It's like chocolate. It's like hot chocolate superfood thing. Anyways, a little speck of it spilled in the bathroom 2 weeks before I moved out. And it's this little brown, this quartz countertop, or whatever. Basically, it spilled a little bit and I had it professionally cleaned. It's paid a lot of money to have it professional clean, but you can still barely see that there's a speck inside the countertop. What they are demanding is that I pay $4,000 to replace the countertop and then the other countertop so that it matches. And part of that is because in the contract, it says you have to leave the house exactly as you left it. I'm like, well, this is natural wear and tear. It's kind of excessive to have to pay for that. And then on top of that, by the way, one of the it's a really nice house, but there's this aloe plant outside that died. There's a person that is the landscape person. I would figure, because I'm traveling a lot, that somebody that's a landscape person would take care of that. Well, one of the plants died, $3,000 to fix the plant, right? So here I am in this situation where there is an authority figure. Landlord is an authority figure, right? There's an authority figure where things I believe aren't fair. I'm talking to my assistant. I'm talking to other people in my life that are realtors. I'm like, is this normal to pay $4,000 for a speck you can barely see on a countertop to fix both these countertops, on top of a whole bunch of other charges that I already agreed to pay and I had done just to not deal with, just to kind of like be done with it. But this is like the last straw, these countertops, right? But in the moment, the option I have, and before I came here today, I tried calling this person because I want to just talk it through and figure it out one way or the other. Yeah. But even as I was getting ready to call this person, who is this chick that has really high standards, she probably has a childhood trauma that's rooted in being a perfectionist. And part of it is, I'm sure she's completely rationalized in her perspective. From my perspective, I left the house almost exactly how I left it. It's just there's such a high standard of every little detail. And I'm like, I paid this much money to rent the house for an entire year. You don't think there'd be that level of like checking the boxes to make sure it's perfect. Like this little speck on the countertop. But what I say is I've worked through a lot of it, but there's always different layers of it. And what this is challenging me to do now is to be vulnerable and express myself, but also I'm not afraid in the conversation that I have with her to be assertive. I'm not afraid to say, hey, I think it's excessive that you want me to replace 2 quartz countertops because of a little speck that I already paid. And by the way, this is the biggest red flag. When I moved into the house, there was a cleaner that she used to clean the house. A really nice lady, her and her team. This lady was like paranoid of the late. She's like, nothing I do is ever, she did a really good job, but she was afraid to clean. She wouldn't do the move out clean because she said that she could never do a move out clean good enough for the person that owns the house. And I'm like, she's the person that recommended me to this cleaner, and the cleaner won't even do the move out clean. I had to find someone else. And of course it wasn't, the move out clean wasn't good enough. This whole thing though has been interesting to me, because even though I've done so much work in the past around like letting go of my relationship to authority when it comes to, I always had the 9-to-5 job where I worked at Barney's New York after Nordstrom's. Things weren't fair, corporate politics. People had to suck up to get the schedule they want. I had to like fight for freedom. Similar childhood dynamic that I grew up in, right? Now, as an adult, as a successful person that is very abundant, I could easily throw away the 4K and be like, whatever, I just don't want to deal with it. But what I realized is that's also a similar energy that my dad had in the situation with my ex-stepmom. I just don't want to deal with it. I just let her do her thing because I don't want to deal with it. I'm like, I understand that I signed a contract saying that I leave everything as I found it. At the same time, this little speck, and I paid this much per month for an entire year, like this seems excessive to me, and I'm not just going to pay it without saying anything.
Yeah.
If I have to, like, obviously I could get lawyers and shit to deal with this.
Yeah.
But that's going to cost even more money than I could, the $4,000 just to pay it, right?
Yeah.
But I won't let it slide without me expressing myself. And when I tried calling her before I came to this podcast today, and normally the past version of me, like, I'm going to wait till after the thing. But lately, the way I work now is if there's something I want to do, I do it. I can handle it. I'm not a leaf in the wind that's going to do this, and then I can't come to this podcast and be myself. I'm not treating things as big of a deal as it used to be, because ultimately being vulnerable and expressing myself doesn't have to be this thing where no one has power over me in the way that maybe as a kid I felt like there was.
Yeah.
But it was interesting getting on the phone today to make that phone call. There was this feeling in my body. I could feel like, I'm just talking to this person that I know has a perspective that is, she's going to argue and stuff like that. And she's very triggered by the situation, and she feels that she's justified and right or whatever.
Yeah.
But I also know that I can handle it. I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's just a conversation.
Yeah.
And even if she doesn't agree or whatever, I don't, like, the $4,000 to me isn't going to make or break my life. It's just, I have to say something and express it. Otherwise I'm doing what I was modeled growing up, which is putting it under the rug.
Yeah.
You know,
the authority thing is such an unlock. And I've actually never, I've thought about that in a different way, but haven't had it understood in that way, because I even had that with like banks or stuff when I have like a fee or a charge. I'm like, oh my God, they're not going to listen. It's gone, like the unfair thing with authority. And I think that's such a good thing for people to think about in the audience is like, what is your relationship to authority? Do you think authority is fair? Like, do you pedestal? I pedestal authority too.
Yeah.
And I feel like authority thinks I'm bad. So I have to kind of like wiggle or negotiate around authority. And when we have that relationship with authority, we're not going to be in our full power.
100%.
We're not going to be in our full expression. So that's such a great point. And I think too, what we can realize is, in the healing path, there's always little things you're noticing with healing. There's like what you're noticing is, so you've gotten so far in your healing path. You see the pattern happening. Now you should have listened to your intuition potentially at the beginning, which is a lot of the lesson. That woman was God speaking to you, the cleaner. Right. God's going to tell you what's up. Like, it's crazy what God will do and speaking through people. And then, but it's like, okay, now that you're in this situation, sometimes the soul leads us through to situations that's like, okay, in this matrix game, if we'll say, how can we learn and fine tune your gifts and abilities or your skills? Okay, this means now I'm going to speak in the moment. Right. I'm going to say how I feel. I'm not going to have the hook. For me, I always think about it like the hook. Do I have the hook or the place where people hook me? In this situation, this woman can hook me by triggering me, by making me overthink, by making me overprocess. But when we can get clear and be like, I don't care about the money. Doesn't matter to me. You can have it. But I'm actually going to speak truthfully in a grounded way, and you can't hook me into your dynamic. Just I'm going to be myself fully in my frame, and there's nothing for you to get from me. Right. Like, it's huge. Yeah. I think, is there anything else you want to say about that? Because I wanted to ask something about your dad. Yeah. So what I'll finish up on that whole loop. When it comes to authority, the way we related to our parents, many times is connected to how we feel and what we believe about authority in general. Because our parents were our ultimate source of authority growing up, right? So what are the stories that you have about authority? My stories were things aren't fair. Right? You can't trust them. Things can't trust them. They're going to try to control you. They're not going to meet your needs.
Your opinions and thoughts don't
You have to
matter.
shapeshift for them or not be yourself.
Tiptoe, walk
Yep.
on eggshells. Like if that's the energy, then what happens is people may have a pattern of creating that same dynamic over and over and over again. And really what it is that dynamic is in our life to reflect back some unhealed childhood energy. And that's why they're in your life. They're in your life for you to take your power back. And this is why a lot of times when you start to set boundaries with people, they may shoot out of your life. Part of it is because you're learning the lesson. Maybe they were in your life to show you to speak up for yourself. Maybe they were in your life for you to get into your own frame of reality and to decide that it was more important to express yourself than to just keep going according to their program of how they want you to be. So what happens is as you start to reformulate your relationship to authority in general, you may find that you start to take your power back. Now, even with this lady that I moved into her house or I moved into I started renting the house, I could feel I was like walking on eggshells. As I was going through this process, what I realized is all because she's the landlord. We could pedestalize the landlord into authority. I'm a successful business person. This doesn't have to be just an ego thing, but like,
Yes.
I'm a successful business owner who travels the world for a living, doing what I love. Sometimes I'd feel like I'm younger. A lot of times the houses I rent, I'm younger than most people. Like don't understand. They're like, where's this 30-year-old guy renting this $1 million house? It doesn't make sense. So they either assume they just don't get it, or they assume that YouTube is like this thing where it's really easy or something like that. But I know who I am. I know that I work hard. I know who I am. I know what my values are. Like I realized I didn't have to project any authority onto anyone, even though we had a contractual agreement or whatever. I left the house what I think was as close as I could possibly get. I knew maybe $1,000 or $2,000 of that $24,000 security deposit might go. I didn't think that like almost all of it would because of the high expectations. No one and anyone in my life that knows me and that knows how clean, I'm a very clean person. So it's not like, it's just, there's such a high standard, right? But basically what I realized is it's also partially a self-projection onto her. And what I realized about her too is not that I need to figure out or need to fix her at all, but looking at her and just kind of what I know about her and my limited experiences with her, I feel like she just has this perfectionist mentality where the next people that moves in, she's also worried that the next people that move in are going to think that she spilt that little freaking stain on the counter.
That's a good one.
Like I not that I'm like, oh, it's right that I still pay $4,000 to replace 2 countertops because of this little spill, whatever. But I could kind of see the humanity in it. Oh, she's a perfectionist. Not that it makes it right and I should have to pay for that, but
Yeah,
you
like
probably
she's
shouldn't
afraid.
be. You probably shouldn't be renting out your house
Completely.
if you're that strict and like it needs to be that perfect. You know, that's
Yeah.
at least my opinion. You know what I mean?
The nightmare that she must, some people like that, the nightmare.
Imagine
they
what her
live
life
in.
is like. Not just pity and say,
Yeah.
but like I do think about that. I'm like, you imagine like a narcissist of someone that controlled you for so long. Imagine what they live in.
Yeah.
It helps you develop compassion. Not to say they're worse than me and develop grandiosity, but it does help you kind of put it into perspective more that people that turn into bullies normally were bullied growing up.
Yeah.
It helps you kind of understand it a
Yeah.
little bit more. And it's never personal too.
Yeah.
That was a huge epiphany. Huge is that this whole situation, it's not personal in the sense that she's doing it to me because I'm not worthy or there's something wrong with me. It's just a pattern that's being played out. And she's helping me become aware of these patterns I'm shedding within myself. So in a way, it's kind of worth it for the growth that I'm making, but I also have to own my voice and express myself in the situation in the moment. Otherwise, I'm continuing to let kind of like the old pattern live, which is probably the next thing that you wanted to mention, which is the dad situation.
Yeah. So the dad thing is curious to me because what do I want to say about it? So I was relating a lot to parts of your story. So my situation was narcissist mother, and then that to me was the villain in my eyes, and that to me was the unsafe authority in my eyes. And then what's been interesting is through my process of my awakening and my my mother wound healing, which I teach a lot, mother wound healing. I feel really great with my mom. I'm very grateful. But what's been interesting is the relationship with my father and healing that. My father's very sick, but I've been in my own process of healing my relationship with the masculine. And I think it's interesting because when you're younger and you're that empath and you have that narcissistic dynamic, you have your villain very clear. And then also you have your savior. My
Yeah.
dad was the savior.
Yes.
But also he wasn't, because I
Yeah.
wasn't being protected. I
Yeah.
wasn't being, in your case too, you were not being protected.
Right.
It's triggering a part of me that felt like I wasn't protected to hear you say that, because I'm like,
Yep.
how could you as a father let that happen?
Right.
And there's a specific energy that I feel related to that, because my expectation of the masculine is to provide and protect. So to feel like a woman is being manipulative and controlling and and doing that to children, and the man is not taking care of fucking business, is triggering to me. So
Yeah.
how were you able to sort of awaken to that and process that? Because if I can imagine that your path was similar to mine in a way, you first saw her as the villain and saw that healing you needed to
Mm-hmm.
do. But then I can imagine the masculine healing around that came later.
Yes. You're right on that. So yeah, a lot of the initial healing with my spiritual awakening was around the ex stepmom energy.
Yeah.
Um, and then eventually it led to me becoming aware of this energy that was underneath the surface and related to my dad. And there was like there was anger that was there.
Yes, of course.
And the way that played out for me was becoming aware of, because at first what I did is, because I have a shadow work coach, and like over the last like 8 years, I go to different therapists, shadow work coaches, always looking at myself. And anytime someone would ask me about that, I would like defend my dad. Oh, my dad, he
Same.
didn't know everything that was happening. When in fact, there was enough red flags there.
Yeah.
Even if he's working 24 hours on and off as a firefighter, he knew what was happening,
Yeah.
but it was more painful to stand up to someone that was so aggressive and angry. Than it was harder to do that than it was to like save his kids or whatever, And
When you say that, I'm like,
right?
What?
That's
I'm like, yeah, that's the problem.
that's the problem. Exactly.
Like they're kids.
Yes.
Like I'll kill you.
That's exactly it. So it's like, but for a while I was like
Of course.
rationalizing
The inner
it.
child is like, no, you have to have hope.
Right.
Dad's the only one that you have.
And then there's the spiritual side of it, where it's just like, oh, everyone's doing the best they can with the level of consciousness they're at, which is true. But also there was an inner child part of me that was very angry.
Yes.
There was an inner child part of me that also, when I went through this transformation about 2 years ago of really shedding a lot of these layers, I was angry towards that dynamic and towards him, and also towards myself. And what I realized is, one thing that really helped me in this process is having compassion for the inner child part of me, and giving that part of myself permission to express and to be in that anger that what he felt like he couldn't be in. Because there was a couple times where
It's a good one.
I almost stood up for myself as a kid. I mean, I'm like a 13 or 14, 15-year-old kid standing up to like someone that has ultimate power over me, and where else am I going to go? Where am I going to run away to? Like I didn't have any friends to go run away to, really,
Totally.
It was a kind of a conflicting thing, But eventually what I did is I gave myself permission to express that anger, to feel that anger. I went through a phase where I was feeling a lot of that anger as I was processing it. And the way that it eventually looked was actually having conversations with my dad. And I remember one time sitting down with my dad, and I wanted to talk to him, and I went up to his room. This is like a couple years ago. And I just sat down with him, and I just said, "Hey, Dad, I just want you to know that with everything that happened when we were kids, 17 or whatever, I just want you to know that I forgive you." And I said that, and I let it land for him. And at first there was like this mechanism where he's like, well, you want to believe, he always says, you want to believe your wife. You want to believe your wife, because he wanted to believe that nothing was going on. He knew, but that's the way he rationalizes it. But basically what happened is I said, I understand all that. I understand that's what you believe, but I still forgive you. And as I sat there with that, he started to cry. And then I started crying. And then we're both crying. And there was this big healing moment that came because I was vulnerable. And I expressed that. And I really do forgive him. At the same time, I've had to honor that anger inside of myself. And what else has helped me is I realize how different I am, how I've broken the pattern. I look at the things I do, like would my dad like call some, even this lady that I have to talk to about this whole situation with the house, he'd probably like, oh, I just don't want to deal with it right now. There's many times in my past where I stand up for myself. I stand up for what's right. I've stood up for friends. Like I am not afraid. I realize I'm not afraid to be in tension. In fact, when I'm in tension, like to run live events, to be live with hundreds
Yeah.
of people,
Big facts.
I have to like tension.
Yeah.
In the unknown of coaching people on stage,
The best.
there's a lot of tension. Like I've realized I actually like tension.
Good one.
So that reframe for me has helped me realize how different I am. Not that like he's so low vibrational and so unhealed or anything, not like some grandiose way, but I remind myself of how far I've come and how much I actually do enjoy tension. And that relationship with tension for me has allowed me to be more in my own masculine frame and has helped me also heal because I'm able to differentiate, oh, this may be his pattern, but it's not my pattern. So that's that subject object individuation in a way
Yes. Powerful.
where I feel, oh, this is his pattern. For subconsciously, I lived in that pattern for a while and I would tune to others and be, like attract women that were, that were controlling and stuff like this. But every time I've cut out someone out of my life that maybe reflected a certain pattern, every time I've allowed myself to express myself, I remind myself that I'm different. I am myself. I've learned the lesson. I've learned and evolved the patterns that I don't one day pass it on to my kids. And I'm able to be and have this positive relationship with tension. And for any empath, people pleaser, or someone that has those patterns, I think their relationship with tension is the thing that they can really grow with. Because what happens is because tension is not comfortable, what they say is, I'm going to be nice to alleviate tension. But then what they end up doing is walking on eggshells around friends and family, and they mitigate the tension by putting it on their back and trying to manage it. And they say they don't like tension. I think that's not true at all.
100.
They
live in
love tension. They
live in
love it so much they'll carry it with them everywhere they go.
Yes.
But the key is which is more tension? To carry tension underneath the surface and not to express the real you for many, many years and to keep relationships alive that no longer serve, or to have one conversation where you express yourself, where you either reset a healthy pattern dynamic, or that person leaves your life because they no longer resonate with this new empowered you, but then you don't have to feel the tension all the time underneath the surface and feel responsible for it. So really, the transformation is around relating to tension in a new way.
Okay, I just finished listening to my girl Mel Robbins' new book, The Let Them Theory, on Audible. You know what? Audiobooks are my new favorite thing. As a busy mom, as someone who co-runs a business, who just doesn't have the time to sit down and read a book, audiobooks are where it's at. And I only listen to them on Audible. It's just a really easy app to navigate. I love that they have the new releases on there. I can search by category really easily. They even have a recommended for you section that is so on point. I can't, honestly. You should see them. It is like self-help. It's like spiritual books. It's freaking amazing. And then I'm really into some fiction right now. So I'm getting some recommended fiction on my Audible app and I am really freaking into it. I'm actually going to listen to Harry Potter because I never read them. So why not start this new year by listening on Audible, expanding your listening life. I know you're listening to a lot of things, maybe podcasts, maybe watching TV, yada, yada. This is a new, really, really cool, fun experience. So explore over 1 million audiobooks, podcasts, and exclusive Audible originals that'll inspire and motivate you. All you have to do is open the app, tap into your well-being with advice and insight from leading influencers, experts, and professionals. It doesn't matter your focus or interest. There's a listen for it on Audible. I promise you. You'll find titles on better health, including personal fitness, nutrition, and relaxation. You can hear ways to improve your relationships, both in your work and personal life, or how to embark on a new career strategy. Honestly, they have something for you. Over 1 million audiobooks. It's insane. So there's so much opportunity and more to imagine when you listen. Let Audible help you reach the goals you set for yourself this new year. Start listening today when you sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/almost30. That's audible.com/almost30. Get 30 days for free, or you can text the code almost30 to 500. Try Audible for free for 30 days. I have been feeling more energy lately, and this is really, really big for me. I've spent the last year plus feeling not 100% all the time. I think it's because I'm a new mom, not sleeping as much, just running around. It's all new. It's a lot of my body. However, I've started to take MitoPure from Timeline, and y'all, my energy has been so much better. I also feel like I'm stronger in my workouts. I feel like I recover quicker from working out. It's been amazing. And their MitoPure product is a precise dose of the rare postbiotic urolithin A. It works by promoting an essential cellular cleanup process that clears out dysfunctional mitochondria, aka your cell's battery packs, and it's the only urolithin A supplement on the market clinically proven to target the effects of age-related cellular decline. So y'all know I'm on this post-Botox journey. I want to make sure my skin is aging gracefully as possible. And one of the ways I'm doing that is making sure what I'm putting in my body also supports that. And MitoPure is incredible. It's so good. It is also shown to deliver double-digit increases in muscle strength and endurance without a change in exercise, which is a total win. Total win. So this new year isn't just about like a new you, right? I know we hear that all the time. New year, new you. But how about like a renewed you? A renewed you. MitoPure promotes cellular renewal and mitochondrial health to address common signs of aging at the root. How about it? Research-backed innovation that unlocks your fullest potential. Timeline is incredible, and they're offering 33% off your order of MitoPure while supplies last. Go to timeline.com/almost30jan. That's timeline.com/almost30jan. That's almost 30JAN. Enjoy. Okay, we just moved and we made sure to grab all of our place products. We have cookware, we have appliances. It's so important to me that I have my cookware immediately when I move. Moving can be so disorienting, but if I have my cookware, I'm good. Why do I love our place and why have I been using it for, I would say like 4 years, 5 years now? Maybe 5 or 6 years. Definitely when I was in LA, I got on the bandwagon and I have not jumped off because this is non-toxic kitchenware and appliances. It's non-toxic, healthy, sustainable, beautifully designed. Sometimes I'll just keep it like on my like stovetop because it's so gorgeous. And they've just withstood like so much cooking. I cook all the time. They are PFAS free versus so many pans and cookware in the industry. So I really trust this brand. I also adore some of their appliances. So we have the Splendor blender. My husband wanted a new blender. I was like, oh, I got you. I'm ordering from our place right now. It's really gorgeous, but also has a 1,000-watt motor and super sharp blades. So he's getting his smoothie on and loves it. I also adore their Dream Cooker. This is an all-in-one multi-cooker that makes cooking truly a dream. It is so easy. I am rocking it in the kitchen. So I'm really excited for you all to try Our Place and just outfit your kitchen. Go to FromOurPlace.com and enter the code almost30 at checkout to receive 10% off site-wide. That's FromOurPlace.com. The code is almost30. Our Place offers a 100-day trial with free shipping and returns.
Yes. I think that's beautiful. And I think that's been something that I realized just on my path. It's like, how could I have discomfort at a greater level for a shorter period of time than living in a low grade unhappiness for so long? And I
Right.
think most people live in low grade unhappiness, and especially in relationships,
Yep.
live in a feeling of annoyance, aggravation, that thing where you see those couples out and they're always kind of like talking down to each other. They're always kind of clipping each
Yep.
other. They're always kind of, okay, we went 35, it's 34. And you're just like always just kind of checking each other. And I think so many people in life feel like they're living in peace
Hmm.
in a way when they're doing that, but they're actually not. They
Right.
actually feel unhappy. They actually feel dissatisfied. They actually feel unaligned. So, how can we have people get the courage to have the hard conversation, to make the move in their life?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer that I found that I've noticed works most strongly for people is to choose to live by the value of vulnerability, knowing
Hmm.
that it does take courage to be vulnerable. But just in the same way that I've been vulnerable with expressing the real me to my dad, that opened up vulnerability. Even we have a mutual friend that I talked to about this, and she was talking about her dad and this
Hmm.
connection. She's like, I can't be vulnerable to him; he won't get it. And I'm like, you're not doing it to get him to come around. You're doing it because it's how you choose to be. Long story short, she had this conversation with him and had the biggest breakthrough in the relationship they've ever had, because he started crying, and like he had a huge breakthrough. And she texted me or called me or texted me 2 days later and was like, it changed everything. One vulnerable conversation. So living by the value of vulnerability, not to manipulate and to get other people to be vulnerable, but because it's who you choose and how you choose to live by, is also putting you on the path of opening your heart, because vulnerability is a way of opening your heart. It's a way of releasing shame. Shame is the belief and the energy of there's something wrong with me. When you believe there's something wrong with you, what are you going to do to get people's approval and validation? You're going to tiptoe around people. You're going to be who they want you to be. And that's why that energy is active. So what happens is when you let go of that energy, you open up your heart to a new level, and you're also letting go of, so instead, what I'd say is give up validation and approval for vulnerability.
Love that.
Validation and approval, a lot of times, is the thing people focus on getting because maybe they didn't feel connection and love growing up. It's a dirty high compared to love. If love and connection was not felt growing up, approval and validation is the second thing people will settle for. And the belief is, if I can get your approval and your validation, I can then feel enough. So then what happens is people go out into the world and they project this big burden onto everyone around them. They're saying, I'm going to give you the ability to approve or disapprove of me. And I want you to do that. So I'm going to be whoever you want me to be. And then they feel this immense pressure on them, and they're trying everything they can to get it. When in fact, the way they're going about it is they're giving away their power, but also they're giving someone the burden that's not their burden. And that's why it's inauthentic, and that's why it feels cringe for people to do that, because they're giving someone else the power that they don't really have. They're searching for something on the outside that's only inside. So instead of going for approval and validation, focus instead on connection and love. And the only way people can really love you is if you are really being you. If you are showing and expressing your real emotions. They can't find you. Like, you being vulnerable and being the most authentic version of you is going to attract to you people that really resonate with that deeper aspect of you. It will also repel away from you people that don't resonate with that aspect of you, but that's okay. Remember, you don't need the approval and validation of these people. What you want to go for is vulnerability, finding people that resonate with the deeper aspects of you. But the only way you find that is by embodying it first off within yourself. So for me, choosing that vulnerability, choosing to express it over needing people's validation and approval, allowing myself to feel shame as it comes up and to let it go is very powerful. And when you're vulnerable, it also makes you more human. I think a lot of times we shy away from the shame and feeling it because we don't want to be seen in certain ways. But a lot of times I think the reason people resonate with my content that like watch me on YouTube and stuff is because like on this podcast, I share a lot of these things that aren't the sexiest, coolest things to talk about, but people feel like they relate to it and it becomes a connection point. And I'd rather have connection than the approval and validation of anybody. I'd rather feel I live by authenticity and vulnerability over approval and validation.
That's so beautiful. It's so interesting with the vulnerability thing, because I even catch myself at some points, even being as far along in my path as I am, and saying that just as it relates to the empath work. I even find myself, I'm like, okay, I need to be vulnerable. And I'll be like, still checking for other people of like what that means to them. Like, what do they want me to be vulnerable about?
Right.
You know, like I still scan vulnerability. I'm very vulnerable in a lot of ways, and what I do in my work is very vulnerable, but there's still such a growth edge for me around true vulnerability. And I still find it hard because I'm like, yeah, that's like my growth edge. There's just aspects of me that could be more vulnerable. And the way that I get to that is by finding more embodiment within myself. Because once I'm really in myself and in my own energy, that's when I can access the truth of what's happening rather than being so empty because I'm just attuning to other people or like in other people is energy.
Yeah.
With what I want to talk about too, sorry, to kind of shift a little bit. Okay. Because we've talked about the empath stuff. We talked about the childhood. We talked about some of the things that people can do to get into their own energy and more vulnerability. I do want to talk about 2025, like what you're
Hmm.
seeing for trends and predictions.
Yeah.
I'm kind of excited about this because I feel like I've been really watching how a lot of things, and it's been more clear to me, a lot of things I was seeing or predicting have now come true or have now really alchemized or happened in the collective.
Hmm.
Like when 2020 started to happen, I was like, oh, called this, called that, called this. And I'm excited about 2025 because I really can see where things are going and I feel really good about it. I
Hmm.
really feel like people are feeling better than ever. People are really focused more on the right things, not like the achievement things.
Right.
What are you seeing or what are you feeling into as like collective spiritual themes for 2025?
I feel like for me, the what I'm noticing in my own life that I'm noticing in my clients, and maybe it's confirmation bias because I'm going through it, talking
Yeah.
about it, and then attracting people that mirror it
Yes,
back to me.
totally.
But for me, this whole last year was around letting go of an old identity
Mm,
and the familiar energy connected to that.
it's a
So
good
for
one.
me, for years, I've been on YouTube making content. I've felt like I've created for myself almost a 9 to 5 job in the same way I had a 9 to 5 job in the back of the day where I
That's
had
the
to,
entrepreneur trap.
right? Because you want freedom.
Yes.
And then you end up creating a lifestyle where it's like, am I really free?
Yes, that's the story of my life.
And
I'm like, I'm free. And then I'm like working more than ever.
right. And for me, I've known for years, like 2 years, and I've done many, like I've done probably 6 or 7 live events over the last 2 years. Um, and that's where I really get lit up.
Yeah.
When I do a live event, when I run a live event, I love it. I enjoy it. That's the best content that I've had over the last 2 years that's gone the most viral is stuff from live events. However, something keeps holding me back from doing that. It's like a subconscious belief that if I stop being on the hamster wheel of making lots of social media content, that I'm going to lose the momentum I've created over the last 8 years. So this last year has been me kind of like closing out the cycle and letting go. Even before I moved here in Austin, I got rid of 80, 90% of everything I owned, which felt very freeing. And now I'm traveling. I don't know. I'm really stepping into the unknown for 2025. So 2025 for me is all about following the excitement energy. And here's the interesting thing. Anytime I run a live event, like this weekend, I'm running a live event. Anytime I'm running a live event, I get podcasts, people that want me to come on their podcasts. I get all these other synchronicities that don't look connected at all. Every time I run a live event, other things happen in my life. Other aspects of my life just really get taken to the next level. I
Same.
meet awesome people. I find myself in the right place at the right time. And it's when I plan and I'm in the vibration of running a live event, all these other things align. And then what happens is as I'm going to be in the frequency this weekend of running this live event, it's like that frequency itself I enjoy being in. I'm going to film the whole entire thing and that's going to be my social media content. So that's how I'm like restructuring my business. But that energy, that frequency is what I'm passionate about, what I'm excited about. So what I'm doing in my life now is I'm cutting out 80% of what I felt like I had to be doing to keep the hamster wheel going. And I'm just putting all my energy in the things that bring me life. So for 2025, the saying I've been saying is feel alive in 2025. 2025 is the year you bring to life and you feel alive. Following the passion, maybe not understanding how it's going to lead to this and that. But for me, as I focus on that, things in my life are shifting. And also, as I embrace the unknown, I had this epiphany where I realized that when I run live events, the most fun I have at live events is when I'm in the unknown of having nothing planned.
Oh my gosh, that's my retreats. I was like, I don't even think I can do schedules anymore.
No.
Because each day it drops in or even right during a
Yep.
session. I'm like, oh, we're going to do archetype work right now.
And it would change the energy if you're like
100%.
2 weeks before, you're like, we're going to do this time and this.
Yes.
And in one of the last live events I did, I had my favorite part of the whole entire thing was a Q&A section where there was nothing planned at all. And funny enough, afterwards, I got told that was my favorite part, was
Yes.
that unknown session.
Yes.
And then I ran a VIP event a couple weeks ago where literally nothing was planned. And it was the most fun. It was a smaller, like 50-person thing.
Yeah.
I had more fun in that than anything. So this event that I'm doing this weekend, I'm like, I'm going to have nothing planned.
Yeah.
I'm just going to show up and see what comes through. And
Yes.
that I think is going to be, and the magic of that is it's the unknown. So for 2025, feeling alive, following the passion, not understanding where it's going to take you, understanding that state of consciousness, that state of energy will attract to you new synchronicities, new opportunities, and new people that reflect back this new energy. And also stepping into the unknown. Trust the unknown. Trust your abilities in the unknown. It takes so much pressure off. I know that, like, even on this podcast, like, the less I know before we talk, I just know it's going to come out the most authentic. And knowing that, it takes the pressure off. I didn't have to spend 3 days getting ready for the live event that's coming up, or even for this podcast. I just show up and it's more fun, you know? So that's for me for this next year. It's stepping into the unknown. It's trusting the unknown, trusting the divine to flow through me as well. It's not Aaron Doughty, the ego needs to understand all these things and needs to be perfect. And I realize people don't care how I look if my intention is to add value and to be authentic. So as long as I'm willing to be a vessel of that energy, that's what matters. But also having the courage to step into the unknown, and to let go of the safety mechanisms
100%.
that I'd always have.
Yep. I think also too, you know, because when you were talking, I was just like thinking about if it's because you're at a certain level on your path that you're now able to do this. And this is what I'm curious about, because I feel similarly. You know, as an example, I was in Ibiza for my retreat, and I had Times Square billboard happen, People magazine happened during the same exact time that I'm in my purpose and service. And then during the retreat, I'm actually blocked from getting the agenda until the day of, or until the session of. And now I'm like, oh, this is actually just my flow. Because also you're tuning into the collective energy that's created in the group.
Right.
So the group energy actually is very specific to where they are in time space. And what they need is actually very specific. So it actually makes it more fun. But what I realized with, you know, like what you were talking about with the group loving the Q&A, there's a sense of aliveness.
Yes.
This is why people love stand-up comedy. This is why they love improv. Like, this will never happen anywhere else in time. This is being co-created magically through something that's invisible, the invisible web that's sort of coming and amalgamating and going, which is so powerful. But I'm curious about the experience of being in joy and being in the flow, because I feel like I'm only now at this level of my development able to do that, where I'm able to follow the joy and trust. And I feel like before I was maybe potentially too attuning to other people, too attuning to other people's blueprints, not really able to read or understand. So what advice would you give for people so that they can, in their life today, be able to follow what is meant for them and be able to live in that frequency of living, just like living in their joy, so they know that it's theirs and not other people's, and so that they can be following their call? Because I'm gonna say one more thing about it. Right now you have so much alignment in your life. It's like levers are being pulled for more alignment and fine-tuning alignment. A lot of people are working at jobs that they hate, in places that they hate. So how do you follow your joy when, like, you hate your job or you hate your relationship or you're living so unaligned that the leaps feel greater?
Well, it's knowing that it's going to be a process. For me, back in the day when I started making YouTube videos, I was working at Barnes, New York in women's shoes. In February of 2017, I decided I'm going to make a video every single day on YouTube until I'm full-time. So I started making daily videos. Within 3 to 6 months, my YouTube channel started to grow. Within 6 months, I had 100,000 followers, and then I learned internet marketing so that I could quit my job. And that was like the very beginning path of that. But in the moment, doing YouTube videos, that was the thread of my passion at the time. I've been doing YouTube videos for 7 or 8 years now, and now I'm bored of it. The energy for me to sit in front of a camera and for me just to, like, me and the camera, it's a different energy than when someone's pulling the information out of me, like right now. Or so it's like I like doing podcasts now and live events now. It's a different energy because there's people involved. So it's more dynamic. There's the unknown. It's like I think of it as just a lot more fun.
Just really quick, I don't want to stop you, but I just want to say something that I noticed in that. So I wonder if when you were doing YouTube before, it was you are able to tune into your own energy because there's no one else around and you're sort of healing that part of you. And now that you're fully in self, you're able to be in self, but now be in other dynamics.
Yeah,
and so it's more interesting.
Maybe also it was the thread or like the carrot on a stick that got me where I needed to be.
Yes.
To put in the reps. For years, I made videos on YouTube, which got me better and better at, like, expressing ideas and concepts. Now it's like I've been prepped for years to just go on tour with live events. to where now I'm doing many more live events, not just 1 or 2 or 3 live events a year, but going on like every month doing live events. It's a different energy.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying for the people that are listening is you start with where you are. For me, it was making videos back in 2017. And then as I committed to that one thing, because the videos was the one thing that did light me up, it wasn't always easy. I had to learn how to edit. I had to learn how to do like thumbnails and graphic, there were certain things I had to learn that I wasn't like, this is my highest passion is coming up with a YouTube thumbnail. That wasn't the case, but it was connected to this thread that eventually.
This is my highest passion.
Right. Well, there's people, the funny thing too is when I used to sell women's shoes, there were 1 or 2 people in women's shoes. It was a commission-based job. There were 1 or 2 people that sold more than anyone else there. What do you think was the thing about those 2 people?
They loved it.
They loved it.
Wow.
They loved selling shoes. They loved it. And it wasn't and there's nothing wrong with selling shoes. I'm not like, oh, that's not, but they loved it. So whatever that is for whoever's listening, there's something you do that lights you up when you do it. And when you follow that thing and you do it for the sake of doing it, not doing it to just escape the job, aside of I knew back deep down, if I'm being honest, yes, I wanted to get out of that 9-to-5 job I had. But I was also, it felt good to do it. It felt good to make videos. It felt cringe at first because I was getting more and more comfortable on camera. But every time I did it, I got more and more passionate about it. I saw the difference it was making in people's lives that found my videos. And it just started this cascade effect of adding more and more value. But that's the thread. Following it is like follow the thread of excitement. And for some people, you might not know what that is right now. Well, read books that you're passionate about learning things about. See where that leads you. Say yes to things maybe normally you wouldn't have said yes to because of fear. Be aware of what's driving different decisions you make. But as you start getting to the unknown, more magic happens, more synchronicity comes into your life. And then also follow that thread of excitement. Follow the thing that you're actually interested in. Start studying things. Start reading books. Start talking to people. Get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think what I would say too is that oftentimes people have so much information input being inundated in their consciousness and their psyche that they actually don't have time to create or really allow an interest or an excitement to come through. So sometimes you have to remove any input or stimulus from the outside for a little bit. And you don't have to go into a cave, but just kind of taking the social media a little break, not really watching the TV, watching the YouTube, so that you can create or have your own internal fire or dialogue be started to draw you to something.
Isn't it funny that people say so often they don't have time for certain things, for like their self-growth journey or whatever, to start their business or whatever? But yet if you go on their phone, it probably shows like 6 to 8 hours of being on social media apps, but they don't have time.
Every day now.
And so I think that being really honest with ourselves, I think it could be very beneficial to completely cut out being on the phone for a while and see what kind of insights you get, because so much of our attention is being hijacked with social media apps and the news and other things.
Our creativity too.
Yeah.
I think even, what can be good for people if it's easier, what I'll do now is in my car time, I don't listen to anything.
Yeah.
And I'll just sit in silence and kind of just let my mind cruise or see what comes through. So finding the pockets where you can, in the car, on a walk, at lunch, there are places where you can let inspiration come through.
Right.
I think watching your inner dialogue, your inner critic, the part of you that could be judgmental. I think that's another thing that I think really I'm predicting in 2025 is people really getting to know and learning to work with their inner critic.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes you can have the idea, you can have the dream or the vision, but the inner critic might shut it down.
Right.
So you have to really be mindful of the voices that are telling you to not follow your excitement, that it doesn't matter. You have to monetize it or all of those things. But I love that. And I feel like what I've noticed in the collective is just a general sense of greater peace and happiness and prioritization of really just living their life rather than being so goal-oriented, wanting to achieve, wanting to build all this stuff. I feel like people kind of are just really learning to live their lives a little bit more.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're just lying about it online.
No, I think so.
Maybe they're just sharing about it.
I think we're going through a phase where we're recognizing that a lot of the things that used to drive people's motives or actions was like, you get on Instagram and you see the perfect this, the perfect that. You see all the money and success. And that would normally motivate people. And I think now it's becoming almost sexier or more acceptable to just live life on your terms and to find out what happiness is for you. So living in a more balanced lifestyle, or like authenticity, I feel is there's more and more of a business of authenticity where it's
Yeah.
like, I look at there's like certain YouTubers in completely different niches that it's just more raw and authentic.
Yeah.
And people resonate with that instead of the crazy edited, like perfect looking
Yes.
thing. It's like people want to connect to real and authentic now.
Yeah.
And I think,
Yeah, Gen Z, man, they're really bringing through
right.
the like authentic little dirt ball
Yeah.
do their thing. Like, I
Yep.
mean, for my generation, it's so crazy to see because I'm like, we were like at the Eiffel Tower with a 12 dozen bouquet of flowers and champagne posted up acting like it was a picnic for one fucking Instagram.
Right.
And Gen Z's like, yo, this is blurry.
Yeah.
This is upside down. We
Right.
don't even care. You're like,
Yeah.
what?
There's a beauty to that.
That's amazing.
Versus
Amazing.
going into the phone and seeing 700 photos
Oh, yeah.
of like one thing to find the
Yes.
perfect thing. It's like,
Yes.
let it be, let it not be perfect. And a lot of
Yes.
times when it comes to content creation in general or YouTube, it's like that some of the best, most viral content that I have is stuff that doesn't look, I would never have assumed or known
Really?
it was going to go viral. It's just real and authentic.
Wow.
You know?
What's examples of that?
There are topics I remember sharing or stories I remember sharing in YouTube videos where I'm like, this isn't gonna, do I even put this out there? I don't even
hear
know if
you.
this is gonna resonate with people. And I put it out and it might be a video that gets hundreds of thousands or millions of views.
Wow.
Or it's, just, you just never know.
I know.
You really don't know. We think in our mind we know what perfect is, and really perfect is another excuse for good enough. Like, how do I
Yes.
know I'm good enough? And it's
so true.
it's becoming not so cool to just always look perfect.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah, people want to see the chinks in the armor. They want to see the cracks. I think for women, I think people are particularly interested in seeing not perfect because women hold themselves to such a perfect standard.
Yeah.
I think for men, I'm curious if that stands true because I don't see a lot of men interested in other men that are like not perfect or
Mhm.
not like presenting masculine in a certain way. But I
Yeah.
think for women, it's like, oh, I feel safe. Okay, she's not perfect.
Right.
There's like
Yeah.
a thing.
Yeah. I think either way, I think there's probably versions of that are play out in different ways. Like if
Yeah.
you think of men bodybuilders,
Yeah.
going to the gym or something like that.
Yeah.
I think guys are very self-critical of themselves.
Yeah.
And they are comparing themselves to everybody there.
Yeah.
In different ways. And then women probably the same thing. But the cool thing is that if you have the courage to express the real vulnerable you stand out from everybody.
Yeah, it's so real.
You stand out from everybody,
It's
you know?
so real.
The-
And it's just one story I told years ago. It was like probably like year 3 in the podcast about this book that I read one time
Mhm.
that talked about how oftentimes people that are very gifted have like their left eye is lazy or they have a lazy eye because that meant that your third eye was shut down from a young age.
Uh-huh.
So it talks about the spiritual relationship between having like a lazy eye and having your third eye shut down from a young age. And I still to this day get messages like once a week about it. I'm like, I
Yeah.
mentioned that one time 3 years ago and I don't even know what book I'm talking about. And the fact that that weird thing
Yeah.
still resonates is so wild.
Yeah,
And
because it stands out.
It stands out. You just don't know. And I think there's also a truth. There's like there's like
Right.
a universal truth to things where you're like, whoa, I don't know why. That's a very weird thing
Mhm.
that resonates and feels true.
Right.
I feel like that about so much spiritual information, whether it's Kabbalah, whether it's old spiritual stuff, there's a universal truth that just stands that can really stand the test of time.
100%. Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to ask about was about surrender.
Yeah.
I love your work on surrender and letting go. And I do feel like, I think a lot of us, and I'll speak for myself, it's like I'll surrender and be like, I'm surrendering.
But are you?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm doing a good job surrendering.
Yeah.
Like, there's this situation with this dude where I'm like, I'm surrendering and I'm thinking about it a lot. Not all the time, but I'm thinking about it. So,
Uh-huh.
what does surrender mean? Why should we do it? How does surrender actually get us what we want? Like, talk about that.
Yeah, so very often, how often do you hear it when people, for example, want to attract love, right?
Mhm.
If you talk to a couple that they've been together like 10 years or something,
Yeah.
right? You're like, how did it happen? So often, what you hear is, it happened when I wasn't looking.
Pisses me off.
It happened when I wasn't looking. I said, you know what? I'm going to be single for a year. I'm going to go out there and just do my thing, focus on my business,
Yes.
whatever. And then they let go of resistance. They surrendered. They focused on enjoying their lives, their friendships, whatever. And then it happens. So often it happens when you let go of trying to make it happen or trying to force it to happen. So what happens do you ever hear it? It's like, oh, well, I was desperately looking for a relationship and I was trying to control all these dynamics and I was doing this and doing this and then it happened. It never happens that way. There's many things in our life we can't control, but one of them is relationships. And when you let go, it's a letting go of control. Now, control is something we use in our reality to try to get our needs met. If I can get you to respond to me in the way that I want, then what I'm going to get is I'm going to get my needs met. So in a way, the only reason people have trouble surrendering is because there's a lack of trust there, because to control feels safer. Now, the thing to look at though is, does control, because it's a mechanism that's being used to get the needs met, does it actually even get your needs met? Or very often, people use it because they think it's going to get them what they want. Control absolutely repels what you want, because anytime someone feels like they're being controlled, what do they do? They rebel.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? If somebody wants you to do something specifically and you can feel they want you to do it and they're trying to control you, you will do the opposite.
Don't piss me off.
Exactly.
When people want me to compliment them for something, don't fucking.
You can feel when I used to work with this
piss
lady
me
and
off.
she'd be fishing for a compliment.
Don't.
And people would pander into it sometimes.
not
And it's
me.
like, but that's you can feel that energy, right?
Yes.
And what feels intrusive to you and why it triggers you is because you don't want to be controlled.
Yes.
Well, same thing with relationships. So when there's someone else that someone's dating, if they can feel at any level that there's any type of control there, they're playing out the control dynamic because it's active inside of your energy field. Like, you're choosing to play the game of control. And because you're choosing to play the game of control, they are reenacting that control dynamic. Now, letting go and surrendering means that maybe this relationship is meant to be or is not meant to be. Like, think about certain areas of your life where things go really well. Like, I imagine you have great friendships. And there's probably, are you trying to control your friendships?
Do you know why? Yes. Okay, this is why. And I'm not. You know why? Because my friendships all changed when I decided to literally let go psychically of every single one of them.
Yep.
And be completely okay without any of the friendships I had.
Ding, 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 ding.
I know, that's so crazy.
Okay, so there's this one area of your life that is friendships where there's a lot of flow and there's surrender and
Crush.
And there's what?
I crush friendships.
Yeah, crushing it. You're
Crushing
crushing it.
it.
You're killing the game.
Killing it.
In this area of your life, though, that control dynamic might still be alive. Now, let's look at the energy between the two.
Okay.
What is the difference between relationships that are romantic and friendships, energetically?
Okay, yeah, I've let go for first of all with friendships. And I really am like,
Why can you let go of friendships so easily?
I can let go of friendships so easily because I'm in my worth around it, or
Okay.
why?
Is there an abundance? Do you trust
Abundance,
that there's an
yes.
abundance, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's take that.
Too many.
Too many. Now let's take that over here. When it comes to abundance of relationships, what is the belief most people live by?
Yeah, there's not
Scarcity.
Yeah, there's not enough men. There's not enough good
If there's
ones.
not enough men, if spiritual men or men of depth are rare
Yeah.
to come by, there's a scarcity.
Yes.
So when they come into your orbit, I need to control, because if I don't control, then they're not going to stay around or
Yes.
whatever. And there's trying to avoid the tension or avoid the
Yes.
rejection or whatever. Over here, there's none of that energy.
Yes.
Why is that energy not over here? Because there's a trusting that who's meant to be in your life will come into your life, and who's meant to leave your life will leave your life, and you have more than enough friends because you're in abundance.
Yes.
But in scarcity, in this relationship dynamic, there's scarcity. And the reason that scarcity is there is because there's some belief that there's some belief that you need to control in order to get your needs met. There's a belief that this relationship needs to serve the purpose. This needs to be the one. This person needs to stay around. But do they? What if you had the same energy over here of allowing who's meant to come into your life to be in your life, for whatever period of time that
Yeah.
is. Maybe it's forever, maybe it's your entire life, or maybe it's just for a couple months or a year or whatever. But if you had that same energy, you would be in abundance.
Yeah.
And when you're in
I'm
abundance,
in abundance, Aaron.
well, what I mean is there wouldn't be the control.
Yes,
There
for
wouldn't be
sure.
the control dynamic in abundance.
Do you even want to see where that? So this even plays into my example. So when I'm traveling, I am unattached, surrendered, do not
Yep.
care, and I crush.
You just kill the
All
game.
of my men are not in Los Angeles, and then I meet a man in Los Angeles, and I'm like, feel like because it has more potential to be for long term, I feel like I have to.
Yeah,
control.
these over here are probably more intimately safe.
Yes.
Because you know that it's long distance.
Yes.
It's not gonna last,
Yes.
maybe. So you're probably energetically more open.
100%.
But then what happens is in relationship where it could actually turn into something more, control comes in,
Yes.
resistance comes in.
Yes.
And what's beneficial to do is to really sit with that energy, to really
Yeah.
feel that. Let yourself feel that. Like when you're in that energy or with this person and you could feel there's a desire to be seen a certain way or to connect in a certain way, or you want them to respond in a certain
Yes.
way, to really feel into that.
I think it's weird. Like when I'm away, there's like, I feel like so worthy. And then when I'm here, and I don't know if it's LA or what, I'm like, I question my worthiness. I'm like, oh, there's so many girls. They're so beautiful.
So comparison.
Yeah.
So comparison is maybe, so when you're traveling, that energy isn't as much there. But when you're in LA, so what is the story around LA? What is the story around how you relate to other people here?
That there's so many beautiful women.
Yep.
There's so many amazing women.
Yeah.
I'm friends with a lot of them, but
Yep.
that there's an abundance of women and that I'm not special, that I'm too much for what I do, that like what I do is too much for the person that I'm with, that I have to make myself stand out,
Mm-hmm.
that men here are not, masculine enough and can't like hold it down in the same way men in other places can.
Mm-hmm. And what I want you to become aware of too is that all of those things you just said
Mhm.
are all beliefs within your energetic field. So how can you attract a grounded man that doesn't think you're too much, that is in their own integrity, that meets you where you want to be met? How can you meet them in LA if the belief is they're not out here,
I
they're
know.
somewhere else? So the funny thing is you go somewhere else and they're there.
Mm-hmm.
But really, what I want you to look at, or what I would encourage
No,
you to
please.
is look at the common denominator is that it's a belief system.
Yes.
It's a belief system that might serve you, and that belief system may also serve you to feel familiar emotions. So maybe it feels familiar to compare yourself to other women.
That's a good one.
Maybe it's there's this ideology. It's a little deeper. We won't go into the whole thing, but Alfred Adler. It's called Adlerian psychology. There's a book called The Courage of Being Disliked.
Yes.
And it's a very powerful book that's all based on the teachings of Alfred Adler. But one of the things he says is that the past does not equal the present in the way that we think it does. Basically, in the past, something happened. And what happens is if you believe it has power over you, it will. But you created a certain goal, a subconscious goal in the past that is active in the present moment right now. So you may have this subconscious goal to feel not good enough. You may have this subconscious
Yes.
goal to compare yourself to other people because that feels familiar.
Yes.
That was a mechanism maybe you used as a kid to feel not good enough, to
Yep.
feel those familiarized emotions inside of your body.
Yep.
So there's actually a subconscious goal maybe to be single. There's maybe there's these
Yeah,
subconscious
100%.
goals, and that part of that is, okay, well, when I travel, I'll open myself up energetically and meet these people that I'll see for a couple days or a week, and then I know it's not going to turn into something deeper. So it's okay. And then
Yes.
your energy is open. Then you attract all this. And then you come here when it could get serious with someone. And it's like, there's a closing down of that energy, or it just doesn't happen that same way. But subconsciously, we are fighting for familiar.
Yes.
And there's a part of us that wants to stay in familiar. And what will allow you to feel that emotion that is familiar, maybe is comparing yourself to other people, being able to judge the dynamics of how you look against other people, and also the men that are here. And what happens is you get to create the same story over and over again. And the story is all the men are somewhere else. There's not any actually masculine men in LA. Whole bunch of beautiful women here that you feel like you have to be compared to. That's all That's all stories.
Yeah.
Do you think there are women here that, even though maybe there are a lot of women here that are beautiful, however, do you think there's women that they don't compare themselves to other people, and the people they meet, they have such magnetic energy because they're not comparing themselves,
Yeah.
that then it's like that's not even their reality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It becomes a
100%.
self-fulfilling prophecy.
No, I think it's so powerful, and I'm having a lot of awakenings. And I do think that it's interesting because I think there is a fear of intimacy I have in like the true intimacy. And I think that it keeps me from that, where I'm like, oh, I'm whatever the story is, like
Yeah.
the distance keeps me out of being in true intimacy. And then the beliefs that I have that I'm not enough for all of these things also keep me from being in true intimacy with men.
Right. So I guess the question is, the thing to look into is really begin to question those beliefs.
Yeah.
Really, and to realize they're just beliefs. Like,
Yes.
was there ever something you believed about yourself and then you stopped believing it?
Yes.
Like Santa Claus for many people, or the boogeyman,
Yes.
right? Like at one point we believed that the boogeyman was going to get us.
Yes.
We thought that like I have to tiptoe around my
Yes.
room to jump into bed because the boogeyman's going to get us.
Yes.
And hopefully someone realized the boogeyman's not going to get me.
Yes.
Well, what happens is we have all these beliefs that become these self-fulfilling prophecies where we believe, oh, men aren't able to meet me where I'm at, for example,
Yes.
or there's not people that appreciate me for me, or I'm too much, or I compare myself to. These are all just beliefs. And there are people that basically have owned themselves. You think about that sometimes. Some of the biggest insecurities, because you think of LA, you think of probably people are insecure of different things. There's someone with the same exact insecurities that you might have. There's people that own it.
Yeah.
There are people that feel like you feel like maybe I'm too much.
Yeah.
There are women that might feel like they're too much, but they own it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that puts them down here.
Yeah.
It's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a lot.
Yeah.
Whatever. But can you feel the difference of I'm
For
too
sure.
much and I need to tone myself back,
Yeah.
to I'm too much and that's just who I am?
Yeah.
Which is more attractive, right? It's like I'm just going to
Totally.
own it. There are people, whatever insecurity anybody that's watching this
Yeah.
has, there is someone else with that same insecurity that has owned it. And because they own it, they are more magnetic and they're more attractive in their own energy. And that works for everything. Could be a mole on the certain side of the face. It could be someone's height.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, there's someone else with that same height that's owning it.
Yeah.
And because of that, they're more magnetic.
Yeah.
So that also, I think, is a very powerful way of just owning the authentic parts of yourself, is just realizing the comparison is where we butcher things up.
Yeah.
And where we think, oh, this is better, this is worse. You just own it. If you own all those things you mentioned to me, you just own it. It's like that. There's no problem.
I'm owning. What am I owning?
Well,
I'm not too much. I'm the perfect amount. It's with the too much, it's like with my work.
and it won't be too much to the right person.
Yes.
Right? Something to think about.
I'm not too much. There's plenty of men. I'm available and open for intimacy because I can trust myself.
Yep.
And I am unique in my own expression.
Right. And there's no one else out there that is the way that you are with your energy,
Yeah.
with your business, with how you show up in the world.
Yeah.
There's no one else that is exactly like you anyways.
Yeah.
So you giving yourself permission to own that, to feel that, allows you to also meet somebody that resonates with that frequency of you.
Yeah.
But they can't meet that if you're, not owning it, not expressing it,
Yes.
holding yourself back, not wanting to be
Yes.
too much.
Yes.
Who cares if you're too much,
Yeah.
right? Too much. It's such a
I know.
That's such a,
I think
a
so
funny.
many women struggle with that. I'm not enough and then I'm too much.
What does that even mean, though? How can you be too much?
Too much. What feels this is a wound from past relationship, but what is for me too much is too deep.
Mhm.
Like the way that we're having conversation, like I've been on dates with men and they're like, that was like work for me mentally because I'm so logged in, like I'm
Yeah.
so logged the fuck on. So when we're in conversation, it's like,
Yeah.
it's not just like, I love this thing. It's like we're going fucking
Right.
in.
Yeah.
And what else is too much? I share a lot, very vulnerably and openly about my life and about my process and about.
Do you hear how too much is just a self-judgment?
For
That's
sure.
it. And if other people do think it's too much, those aren't the people for you.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost like too much can now be your safety mechanism as a
totally.
filter for the people that really resonate with you.
Totally. I've had to do it with my Instagram because like before I would like a lot of the men I wouldn't tell them about what I did or my
Yep.
Instagram or stuff because just whatever, a boundary and then also the judgment of myself. And now that I've sort of changed and shifted, it's like the Instagram is now my filter because I'm really deep and
Right.
all these things on Instagram and it's a different experience than when you're with me in person.
Right.
And so it's been that filter for me of like if they can't get past the depth that I share, then it's like not going to work.
Yeah. What if the depth, I mean, there could also be a belief that the depth is bad somehow.
100%.
And the depth is the not only the thing that, I mean, the depth is real.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the thing is if you
It's
compare
true.
yourself also to the social conditioning of how a lot of people live, right? A lot of people might live in jobs they hate. They
Yeah.
may judge other people that are doing what they want to do or people that are authentic or vulnerable. They may judge that, right? You will be too much for those people, but is that your target demographic?
That's so true.
You know what I mean? It's like let that be the filter to find the people that really resonate with the real you, and let it be the filter to literally propel away the people that won't. Like, would you rather go on a date with one person that you realize there's not that depth or connection, or would you rather go out with them over and over and over again and waste your time for a long time because you know
just
that,
accepted it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like that filter is saving you time and
Yeah,
energy. So this
100%.
filter is a good thing.
Yeah.
The depth is a good thing, but you can't compare it to like, yes, there are people that are less deep that maybe have a lot more options because they can dance around at the superficial level.
100 billion.
But if you compare yourself to, because I've gone through something similar where
Yeah.
I'm also a deep person, and when with how I am in the world, I could date around a lot more, and I could be way more, like going out a whole bunch more often.
Yeah.
I choose not to because also it's just I protect my energy, but I've also accepted that I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and everyone that I meet, I'm not going to resonate with in that level. But if I put my pressure on myself to like go out and to basically have as many options as some friends or some other people do have, I'm going to feel like I'm doing something wrong.
Yes.
And what I've had to learn is I own that I'm very particular with my energy. I'm very particular with who I spend time with. It's not a problem, but going deep is like, I know that there's not going to be as many, but guess what? The barometer for myself of feeling connection is not having lots and lots and lots of people.
Yes.
It's having the deep people that I actually like to resonate with, and that actually resonates with me at a deeper level. So that's my barometer. So your barometer could shift instead of like comparing to others and putting that pressure on yourself. It's like the depth is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a filter. The too much thing is just a self-judgment.
Yeah.
Too much. That even the words itself, too much. It's like, compared to what?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's all relative.
Yes.
It's all relative depending on the person, but it'll be just the right amount for the person that accepts you for you. Right? So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for healing me.
Yeah.
I feel healed. I feel now ready for my dates this week. I feel healed and ready. My subconscious.
You just gotta
work.
own it.
Yeah.
You're just
I'm
gonna own wherever you are.
own it.
Like, I'm sorry, is this too much for you?
Honestly, I like walk in. I'm like Jaden now. I'm like, oh, am I being too much?
You're like in a Beyonce outfit.
Honestly, I just start like talking about crazy shit on it just to test them.
Right? That's the shit test.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. I just start.
Can you
shit
hang
test-
around?
Honestly, oh, what is it? Too much.
Right.
This has been so much fun. I feel like we could go for 5 more hours, but I'd love to have you on again and we could just
Absolutely. We'll
cruise.
do it again.
So much fun.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for your work. I feel like it's so helpful. People probably already know you and just love what you do, but I'd love for you to share what you have going on this year because I feel like you're kind of shifting and changing.
Yeah. I'm moving around a lot this year, talked before this podcast, moving in different places and just kind of like traveling, but I'll be doing lots of live events.
Cool.
So a lot of live in-person events I'll be doing. I'll be going on podcasts and just mainly traveling around doing live events. A lot of the content on YouTube, instead of it being like me talking to a camera, it'll be me like on stage and working
Cool.
with people, which I'm really passionate about. So my passion this year is basically stepping into the unknown, not having an exact blueprint of where I'm living and stuff like that, but also like just engaging with people and having that be recorded, and that's going to be the content that goes online. So I'll be going to different cities, going to Miami soon for a few months, and then probably be going back to Sedona for a little bit. Might do an event there. I think in New York I'll do an event.
Cool.
Just stuff like that.
I
I'm
wanna
excited.
come.
Yeah,
I'll
for
get
sure.
on
You're
stage.
invited. Yeah.
You'll workshop me on stage.
There we go. Let's do it.
Okay, guys, I hope you love this one. I know that you did. I will see you on the next one. I love you very much. Goodbye. Thank you so much, Aaron. My main man, Aaron. Again, you can follow Aaron Doughty on Instagram. It's Aaron Doughty44 and Aaron Doughty on YouTube to find any of his content and any of his resources to help you expand your consciousness and create your dream life.
So good. We appreciate you all. We love you. Thank you for being with us throughout the years. If you're an OG listener and if you're new to Almost 30, we have a library of over 700 episodes, not to overwhelm you, but there's something in there. Just play like a little episode roulette.
Yes, just scroll and
Go back
let
in
your
the
finger
archives.
choose.
It's so good. Just make sure you subscribe. We love you. We'll see you on the next one.
We love you guys. Bye.
Bye.